Chapter 1859, Things I Want, Things I Don't Want to Do. While Zhang Yi was talking, the white dog also came over and wanted to take a look. Zhang Yi directly sent the list to it and let it take a good look for itself. The white dog carefully read it over and quickly lost interest. Fremon's credit value is not that high. The key point is that Fremon's most valuable resource used to be their mineral resources. Apart from that, they had no advantages over Huashu Kingdom and Columbia in other areas. Therefore, even if a long list was drawn up, what significance would it have for the two white bishop mutants? Morana frowned. She knew that things would not be resolved so easily. What else do you want? Zhang Yi smiled. King Arthur came to see me yesterday. Do you know what kind of conditions they offered? Morana's heart tightened. Zhang Yi continued, they said that if we help them defeat you, they will give us 5 spirits of sacrifice. Morana's eyes widened, and she exchanged glances with Saladin and the others, her eyes full of shock. Chang Yuan and Sacrifice did not react as strongly when they heard this, but Chang Yuan's face also carried a look of doubt. 5 shares of the spirit of sacrifice? Chaos, you're asking for too much. No country in the world can possibly satisfy your demands. Zhang Yi laughed. But there are 5 of you. If each of you contributes 1 share, it doesn't seem like it's impossible. The spirit of sacrifice is indeed something of great significance. They simply didn't know if it was worth paying such a high price for the trial treasure of a mighty god-level civilization that they didn't even know what it was. Think about the consequences. Zhang Yi continued, as long as we are willing to help you, you will be sure to win. It is hard to imagine the value of the reward you will receive. He sighed, if there was another way, I would risk my life to win this battle. That is a mighty god-level civilization that has surpassed human civilization beyond imagination. Just think about it with your toes, and you will know how amazing their trial rewards are. Morana and the others looked at each other, knowing in their hearts that it might be an immeasurable treasure. Morana gritted her teeth, let's discuss it some more. She couldn't make up her mind. The key now was to convince the others, especially Sacrifice and Chang Yuan. The problem came back to trust. But who knew that Chang Yuan would generously speak up at this time? If you can guarantee that they will help us win, I will contribute my share. Morana, Alexei and Saladin were clearly taken aback. Chang Yuan's tone was somewhat relaxed, and it even gave the impression that the spirit of sacrifice was not something that was that difficult for him to obtain. Although they did not know who Chang Yuan was, they knew for certain that he must have come from an underground clan. However, they had never heard of an underground civilization being able to easily come up with the spirit of sacrifice. Unwittingly, the way they looked at Chang Yuan changed subtly. Morana took a deep breath and said, Purin and I can make the decision to allow the offering of chaos. She looked at Saladin and said, What do you say, Your Excellency? Saladin stroked his beard, but his eyes flickered with an uncertain light. The Kutan Empire could not compare to Fremon's in terms of its wealth and resources. That country, in its brilliant genius, had fought wars in all directions for 3 years to form a super empire spanning 3 continents. It may seem like a large country, but in reality it is not very powerful. Almost all of the country's resources have been concentrated on him alone. If there really was something as good as the spirit of sacrifice, he would have used it all long ago. How could there still be any left? But as an overlord, he still said, I promise to give my share. He would stop at nothing to achieve his goal. He could make a promise now and then fulfill it in the future. As long as he could get the last reward of the mighty god-level civilization, he felt that a spirit of sacrifice was not a problem at all. Morana let out a sigh of relief, and the few people cast their final glance at Sacrifice, dressed in the strange combat uniform. After a day of contact, they could also tell that this alien came from underwater. Even though he was wearing a thick combat suit, there was a faint salty smell of seawater. What do you say, Your Excellency? Sacrifice looked at the others and said, I agree. I'm willing to contribute as well. But just as Morana and the others were about to let out a sigh of relief and contact Zhang Yi, he spoke again. But who would carry something like that with them? I can guarantee that I will give it to him after I leave this world. Miranda's face froze, and when she looked at Chang Wuan, he reached out very calmly and took out a translucent orb from his waist pocket. Inside was a spirit of sacrifice. Everyone was a little shocked, wondering who would carry such a precious thing with them instead of absorbing it immediately. To be honest, this scene made Morana and the others look like country bumpkins, their eyes fixed on the precious spirit of sacrifice and unable to move for a moment. Chang Wuan put away the spirit of sacrifice and said indifferently, "Go talk to him first." Morana had no choice but to try to negotiate with Zhang Yi first. Of course, she got a flat refusal from Zhang Yi. "An alien of unknown identity, what makes you think he'll give me the spirit of sacrifice? Not to mention him, I'm not sure when I can get the spirits of sacrifice from the two of you of Fremons and the one of Saladin." Zhang Yi didn't mince his words in exposing their true colors. Morana could only say politely, "You should understand that it's not that easy to get that thing. But we can pay a deposit first and give you a spirit of sacrifice. When you get out there, I promise you won't be short-changed." "That's a promise from me, Morana." Zhang Yi didn't believe the promise of someone he didn't know well. But since he wasn't really planning to withdraw from the competition anyway, it didn't matter. However, after hearing Morana's words, he was still a little curious. "Deposit? Where did you get a spirit of sacrifice from?" Morana simply replied, "Don't worry about it. We can give you a deposit as a sign of our sincerity." Zhang Yi thought about it for a while and soon guessed where the spirit of sacrifice came from. Not long after the end of the world, the mutants of the Huashu Kingdom united and went on a mission under the dragon vein of the Qinling Mountains. It was there that they encountered the white dragon for the first time. The purple pyramid, the circuit boards arranged in a matrix, and the 6 purple crystals inserted between the matrix were all spirits of sacrifice. Looking back now, Zhang Yi understood the huge gap in power between the underground civilizations. Neither the Nash Kingdom nor the Wulwan Empire had mastered the technology to mass-produce spirits of sacrifice. But the Dragon Kingdom under the Qinling Mountains had clearly come a long way on that path. For them, the spirit of sacrifice is not exactly a rare commodity, but it is not in short supply either. The spirit of sacrifice that was supposed to be the deposit should have come from Chang Wuan, the mutant that the Dragon Kingdom sent on this trip. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. Originally, he had planned to find a reason to stall and make Morana and the others anxious for a little while longer. But now, right in front of him, there was a spirit of sacrifice within easy reach. As long as he nodded in agreement, Morana would definitely deliver the item to him. However, then again, it wasn't easy to get hold of this item. 2 words, the rules. Trust between people is built on the rule of honesty. It's like a person being loyal to friendship. Perhaps a person won't be loyal to a particular friend, but he dares not betray the concept of friendship. Otherwise, he will lose all his friends. Zhang Yi and Morana could hardly be considered friends, and on the surface, there would be no great psychological burden on him if he agreed to her request and killed her after taking the spirit of sacrifice. However, once he had done something like this once, his integrity would be worthless in the future. Therefore, even if the spirit of sacrifice was very attractive, he could not blindly agree to the other party's conditions. Zhang Yi said indifferently to Morana, "Just one spirit of sacrifice? This is not a guarantee that I can trust. At the very least, I want 3. Morana's gaze fell. "Chaos, where are we going to find 3 spirits of sacrifice for you?" Zhang Yi said, "But I also can't believe that after returning to the outside world, you will give me the spirit of sacrifice as soon as possible. In case you drag it on for 10 or 8 years, how can I wait? Let's think it over again." Zhang Yi didn't say it definitively, and deliberately said it like this. "By the way, I also need to hear what kind of conditions the other team will offer me." This sentence made Morana and the others become anxious again. Zhang Yi ended the call. Lu Karen, Yang Xinxin, and Brian were all there. Zhang Yi leaned back on the sofa and said to them, "There's a problem." Morana and the others have a copy of the Spirit of Sacrifice in their hands and are willing to use it to pay a deposit and obtain our expenses. But now, I want something, but I don't want to do anything. So what should we do? Yang Xinshin smiled deeply at this. That's easy. Oh? Zhang Yi stared at her intently. Yang Xinshin said indifferently, just agree to their terms. We can agree to their terms, accept their Spirit of Sacrifice, and then help them deal with King Arthur's team. In this way, we haven't broken our promise, and it's only natural that we take their things. But, Yang Xinshin narrowed her eyes, the agreement doesn't include us not being able to attack them. That's a separate price. Zhang Yi's eyes lit up, you're right, you're absolutely right. He crossed his arms and rested his chin in his hands, smiling wryly as he said, in any case, we're going to have to take out both groups. So taking their things won't be going back on our word. That's right, let's see how much King Arthur and the others can come up with. Zhang Yi's eyes crinkled with joy. Now he planned to take advantage of both sides. And it made sense to do so. He had only promised to help both sides against the other group. But from beginning to end, neither side had regarded Zhang Yi as an opponent. And Zhang Yi had never said that he would not strike against them. This loophole was one that Zhang Yi could exploit to the fullest. Morana and the others continued to discuss the matter and argued about it. However, the next day, the situation was still delicate. The three forces were still pulling at each other, and no one dared to take action lightly. News of King Arthur and the others soon arrived as well. They also promised to give Zhang Yi 5 spirits of sacrifice in exchange for their help. Zhang Yi used the same method to deal with King Arthur. King Arthur's side could also give 1 spirit of sacrifice, but they could give more than Morana and the others. Ichigard was willing to offer a red energy crystal with extremely high energy. That was his personal energy stone as the king, and although it was not as valuable as the Spirit of Sacrifice, it was the most valuable thing he could offer. At this moment, Zhang Yi had already decided to accept it all. However, on the surface, he continued to bargain with the other party with harsh demands. What he wanted was for time to drag on, until no one could bear it anymore, and then mistakes would be made in the heat of the moment. On the 3rd day, the matter had still not been finalized. Time was almost half gone, and many people were beginning to grow impatient. Even Ichigard was ready to take action, quickly eliminating Zhang Yi's team and then going after Morana's team. However, his decision was stopped by King Arthur and the others. Chaos has a title called Absolute Defense outside, and you all saw his abilities that day. If you want to break through a city guarded by him, at least 3 people need to go out, and it will cost a huge price to break through his defense. In other words, even though their team poses little threat to us, if we want to get rid of them, we will have to go all out to take them down for sure. In that case, it will definitely lead to a breakthrough of our main camp. Ichigard's gaze was full of anger. So, just let ourselves be put in a passive position? I feel like I've been played by that human called Chaos. King Arthur and the others' faces were also a bit gloomy. Of course they were aware of this. But at the moment, all 3 sides were playing their cards openly, and even if you knew that, you had to hold your temper. I'll try again. If they continue to stall, we'll have no choice but to take the initiative and attack. King Arthur said in a deep voice. Odin then expressed his opinion. Perhaps we can try something else. He walked over to the group. Chaos has not agreed to our demands, nor has the Morana team. This kind of double dealing is not only annoying to us, I think it's annoying to the Morana team as well. So, let's try communicating with Morana first. As he spoke, he took the initiative to contact Morana. When they received Odin's communication request, Morana and the others all looked as if they were facing a major enemy. Some even suspected that Morana had already defected. Morana accepted the communication request in front of everyone. Odin. Morana called out his name in a deep voice. Morana, it seems that you haven't successfully united with Team Chaos. How about it, have they been oppressing you terribly in the past 2 days? These words struck a chord with Morana and the others. these past 3 days had indeed been very anxious for them. They needed to constantly guard against Zhang Yi and the team of King Arthur joining forces and launching an attack on them. It was very comical that the team that seemed the weakest actually controlled the battlefield. It was a prisoner's dilemma, where the person who kicked themselves out first was free to do as they pleased. Morana sneered and retorted, "Aren't you the same?" Odin said, "I don't think we can keep letting people make monkeys of us like this." Morana and the others looked at each other. They had to admit that, even though they understood that Odin was their enemy, his words had really struck home with these powerful people. "Odin, did you come here to sow discord?" Morana asked coldly. Odin sneered, "I'll tell you, we've had enough. If things go on like this, in the end, no matter who wins or loses, they'll be the ones who benefit the most. Don't forget, even if one of our teams can win this victory, first, we can't guarantee that we won't die in this battlefield. Second, if there are a lot of survivors, there may be another round of trials. But what about them? They don't have to take any risks and can safely reap the benefits from our hands. Are you really willing to be exploited by them?" Morana narrowed her eyes, and Saladin and the others also had twinkling eyes. "What are you trying to say?" Morana said. "It's simple. Odin stated his purpose, we are all world-class strong, and we can't continue to let people fool us here. Chaos needs to pay for his stupid actions. So I propose that we join forces and get rid of them first. Then we can fight it out." Morana really did have a moment of weakness at this point. The feeling of being manipulated by others was really unpleasant. But soon, she suddenly realized the other party's ulterior motives. In terms of paper strength, Odin's team was the strongest of the three. If they joined forces and got rid of Zhang Yi's team first, then there is no doubt that the party that benefits the most is Odin's team. Morana coldly replied, "You are calculating. Do you think there is any benefit to us after we join forces? Unless you are willing to voluntarily reduce the number of people by 1 to balance the number of people on both sides, I cannot possibly agree to your request." Odin was also a little angry at this point. Voluntarily reduce the number of people by 1? Are you kidding? No one on their team considered themselves to be insignificant, so who would be willing to sacrifice themselves voluntarily? Morana, your request is outrageous. We both know what you're up to. And don't take us for fools. The conversation ended on an unpleasant note. Odin said to King Arthur and the others helplessly, "Those guys aren't going to agree." King Arthur sighed helplessly. Indeed, they're not stupid. No one was willing to give up their interests, so of course there was no chance of a collaboration. Does that mean we can only beg Chaos to cooperate with us? King Arthur pinched his eyebrows, feeling a little irritated. On the other side, Morana and the others angrily cursed Odin and the others for their ambition. They really took us for fools. They first cooperate with us, and then after they've dealt with Zhang Yi's team, they'll turn around and get rid of us, so they can reap the rewards. What a good plan. Saladin slowly said, stroking his beard, neither side is easy to deal with. For now, the best thing we can do is continue to cooperate with the Chaos team. But their demands are a bit. 5 shares of the spirit of sacrifice is really a huge sum for them. What's more, Zhang Yi wants them to immediately come up with 3 shares. Morana took a deep breath and looked at the indifferent Changwon and Jia, who seemed to be indifferent to everything. No, it's not indifference, it's just difficult to communicate. Now, it's up to her, someone who doesn't like to play politics, to communicate with the other teams. Morana immediately got in touch with Zhang Yi and directly told him Odin's plan. Chaos, just now Odin from the team next door contacted me. Guess what he told me? Morana's eyes were inexplicable and her tone carried a hint of profundity, as if there was a warning in it. Zhang Yi, Yang Xinxin, Lu Karen and the others exchanged glances and all laughed. The current situation was well within their expectations. Zhang Yi said indifferently, "Oh? He approached you? It seems he wants to join forces with you to get rid of us first." Zhang Yi shrugged, "Come on, it doesn't matter to us at all. It seems that we are the least likely to win. On the contrary, are you really willing to agree to such a request? Zhang Yi's tone was full of derision. Wouldn't that be handing victory over for nothing? It's not necessarily handing it over for nothing. After all, the Morana team only has one member fewer than the King Arthur team. In a head-to-head battle, there may not be no possibility of winning against the odds. However, they are also unwilling to put themselves at a disadvantage before the battle begins. Morana took a deep breath and said to Zhang Yi, "Chaos, the 5 spirits of sacrifice, I, as the leader of the Pantheon, promise you in the name of the Pantheon, Fremons, and myself that you will definitely get them all. But right now, we really can't spare 3 spirits of sacrifice. We can only give you 1, and we hope that you can help us defeat Team King Arthur." Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. He agreed. But that's not what he said. Do you know what their terms were? Morana's heart tightened, but she said, "If their conditions are really that favorable, why didn't you agree to help them?" Zhang Yi laughed silently. "That's really clever. Their conditions are better than yours. But I'm not holding out for a better price, am I? The decision of who can advance to the next level is in my hands." Zhang Yi glanced down at his clean fingernails. "Then of course I have to try my best to extract benefits from you.